Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. To see every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save time to take some live questions, but we quite often don't have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. But I want to make sure those questions get answered in a video, so I gather up those unused questions and we address them here. Now, today is Wednesday, April the 24th. These questions that we have are from this morning's John Campea Show, Wednesday, April the 24th. So let's not waste any time and let's start getting caught up. And we're going to start things off with Phoenix Arising, who writes, Gemini trailer looks interesting, but I'd like to see more before I'm excited. Your thoughts? Yeah, so what Phoenix is referring to is the first trailer for the new Will Smith film, Gemini Man, where apparently he plays some kind of famous hitman and assassin, and the Bureau, whatever that Bureau is, has just sent a younger version of himself after him. It looks really interesting. I have not known what to think about this project at all. Then the first trailer came, and I thought it looked intrigued. I'm with you, Phoenix. I do want to see more before I start qualifying myself as really excited for it. But I think that first trailer was a good start, and I'm on board for it. So let's see how that all kind of unfolds. Christian Borges writes, John, why did you hate Endgame? LOL. I know, right? Thanks for that, Christian. All right, Movie Idiot writes, John, love the channel. Thank you so much, Movie Idiot. Without spoiling anything, how well did you think Endgame set up the next phase of Marvel? And do you think they will strip it back down to basics to start the next phase? Well, I mean, look, we already know where things are going, right? We know we have Spider-Man Far From Homecoming. I'll say this, and I don't think this gives anything away. Because one of the things that this movie does really well, Endgame, is that it's not thinking about other movies. It's thinking about this movie. And really, for the most part, it keeps almost all of its attention on making this movie as good of a movie as this can be. So I'm going to say, you know, there might be a byproduct of some things being set up later, but you can tell that was never the intention. It was just about making this movie. The attention was kept on this movie, and I think that was a good way to approach it. All right, thanks for that, Movie. I did appreciate that. All right, Andres Samanigo Chavira, I'm sure I'm butchering your name, man. I'm the worst with names. Sorry about that. Okay. Feel very disappointed at Forbes. One critic spoiled something, excusing himself that it's not really spoilers since it happens in the first hour. Now, look, I don't know what it is you're talking about because I haven't read the Forbes review yet. So that Forbes has been developing a reputation lately, particularly with big movies, putting big spoilers in their reviews. They're non-spoiler reviews. They put a lot of big spoilers in. I don't know the one you're talking about, so I can't comment on it. I'll say this. Sometimes I'll go, look, I'll tell you something because it happens in the first 5 minutes. And to me, first 5 minutes is just like introducing the movie. Anything that happens in there isn't a spoiler. First hour? That's like half of most movies. First hour is like half a movie for most people. To say, oh, it doesn't really matter because it happened in the first hour? That's ridiculous. So again, Andres, I can't really comment on it because I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's how big of a spoiler it is or not. But that is unfortunate if that's the case, if that they're especially with the heat they've taken over recent big release films for spoiling things. And I don't know. Look, I really like Forbes. You guys know I quote Forbes a lot on my show. I'm a big fan of Forbes. I read it, their articles all the time. So and I really like a couple of the guys they've got over there. But it is tremendously disappointing that they keep putting spoilers in their non-spoilers reviews. It's frustrating. Fine Nguyen writes, any way studios can embargo spoiler reviews? No, because of this. What's a spoiler? That's the problem. What's a spoiler? You ask somebody, is this a spoiler? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. One of the biggest problems with spoilers in the fan community is that there is not an agreed upon definition for what a spoiler is. Like I told people that, people asked me, is there a post-credit scene in Avengers Endgame? And I said no. That's not a spoiler, but there are some people insisting that me revealing that is a spoiler. To me, it's clearly not, but to some people it is. I mean, so some people think that anything in a trailer is a spoiler. Since there is no agreed upon definition for what a spoiler is, how can the studios mandate a non-spoiler review? What is a spoiler? What is not a spoiler? You know, common sense says if I tell you, hey, there's a scene in the movie where Hawkeye and Widow have a conversation. Okay, it's Avengers Endgame. You expect a couple of the characters are going to have a conversation, but some people may scream bloody murder saying that's a spoiler. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying it just goes to the point that we don't have a shared agreed upon definition for what a spoiler is. So how is studio supposed to enforce what is and is not a spoiler review? You know what I mean? So it'd be very, very difficult, if not impossible, for the studios to do that. Lawrence Reed writes, hey, John, after seeing Endgame, who do you think is the most powerful Avenger? Nope, not going to answer that. Because if I answer that question, that may give away some ideas about certain things that may or may not happen in Endgame, right? So I cannot answer that. I just can't, because if I answer it, it's going to tip some things off, and I just can't do that right now. I'll say this. Going into Endgame, my belief is that Thor is the most powerful Avenger. Again, he took out Thanos in one shot, particularly now that he's got Stormbreaker, yada, yada, yada. So going into Endgame, I thought Thor. But coming out of Endgame, I can't answer that question, whether it's still Thor, whether it's somebody else, because that would be giving something away, and I cannot do that, Lawrence, not yet. Tune into our spoiler review, open spoiler discussion, Sunday at 12 p.m. noon, live on the channel here. Come back, and then we can talk all about it. But right now, I can't do that. Jiri Manian writes, going to see Endgame in 1 hour, super excited. Well, by my calculations, that means you're sitting in the movie right now, Jiri, and I hope you're having a great time, man. All right, Doshi writes, lightsaber doing, you probably mean dueling. Lightsaber dueling is now a sport. Yeah, I think in France, if I remember correctly, that like lightsaber dueling became an official sport in France, which is ridiculous and awesome all at the same time. Fanable writes, wife and I managed to get tickets for 5 p.m. during the April 2nd debacle, and what a debacle that entire day was. For those who don't remember, that's the day that tickets went on sale for Endgame. Totally botched by most people. Anyway, last minute, she's called to go on a business trip for 2 weeks this morning. Should I wait and risk spoilers? Would you? No, I would go. And you know what? Seriously, if I got called away on a trip last second, I would totally tell Ann to go. Don't wait weeks for me. Go see the movie. We can see it together when I get back. And I think that would be her attitude as well. And if I were going away on a business trip, I can always go watch Endgame wherever it is I'm going, because I'm pretty sure it's playing all around the world. So yeah, I'd say talk to your wife, Fanable, but I think it's totally reasonable to go and watch it without her. I mean, if she was gone for 2 days, yeah, I'd say, put a pin in it and wait. If she's gone for 2 weeks, yeah, I think that's a pass. I think that's a pass. Go and see the movie, but talk to her about it first, I think. Doshi writes, going to kick leukemia's butt, hashtag whatever it takes. Yeah, man, just look at Roman Reigns, dude. Look at Roman Reigns for some inspiration right now. Doshi, for those you don't know, is one of our regular viewers here at the John Campea channel. And he, we were talking about that he was diagnosed with leukemia recently, and he's fighting that fight right now. So good on you, Doshi. Hashtag whatever it takes. I love that, man. All right, Colby Harris writes, would a George Lucas or Stan Lee biopic be more interesting? It's hard to say. Like, I know a few things about George Lucas's life which are really interesting, from the car accident and all that kind of stuff. I know a few things about Stan Lee's stuff from the Slugfest book, but I don't know enough about their stories to really know which one would be more interesting. It's impossible to say. Like, you can't just say, oh, George Lucas or Stan Lee, because for all we know, their stories are incredibly boring. I don't think either of their stories are boring, because again, I know a little bit about George Lucas's background, a little bit about Stan Lee's, but I don't know enough to give a definitive answer. I think I would be a little bit more inclined to see a George Lucas one, like, again, from his car accident, the way he was raised, how he went to school, how he put the whole thing together. But then again, a Stan Lee one's going to be awesome too. So I have a feeling within the next decade or two, we're going to get biopics on both of them. I think that's pretty safe to say at this point. Jacob Evans writes, I worked on Infinity War and Endgame as a production assistant. I'm hyped to see it. That's awesome, Jacob. It's always cool when you get to play a little part in something like that and then go and see it on the big screen. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Jacob. All right, Chief Dog 1100 writes, hey, John and co, let's just say Thanos has an army in Endgame. It can't be that large. He wiped out half of existence. Who's left that Thanos can use? Well, I clearly can't answer that question, Chief Dog. Because anything I say in answering that question could be perceived as me tipping off something that happens in Endgame. So I cannot answer that. All I will say is this. Let's pretend I haven't seen Endgame yet. So let's pretend you asked me that question before I saw Endgame. This is how I would answer. Well, Thanos has got an awful lot of forces. He's got the entire Chitauri. He's got the space dogs. He's got an awful lot of forces. So even if he loses half of them, that's still more than formidable. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, that's how I would answer that question. Okay, Mike Thompson writes, really wish Disney hadn't opened Endgame overseas early. Now spoilers are even more impossible to avoid. Oh well, going offline for the next 36 hours. Well, Mike, I mean, look, they didn't open it early overseas. Movies open on different dates in different countries all the time. And quite often, some movies will open in other markets before they open in the US. That doesn't mean they're opening early. They're just, that's their opening date there. Now, quite often, the United States gets movies opened here before other countries. Do we complain about that? Oh, they shouldn't open early here because now it's going to be spoilers for people around the world. No, it's, we shouldn't, it's not us and the universe revolves around us. So let's take a little bit more of an eye, because now you know how everybody else around the world always feels. Because 90% of the time, movies open in the US first. So this time they opened in some other countries a couple of days early. So anyway, I don't think no, I'm glad Disney's doing it the way they're doing it. We've had the benefit of it many, 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 many times. Nothing wrong with some other countries getting the benefit of it sometimes too. So that's the way I see it, Mike. But yeah, do work hard to avoid those spoilers. But hey, it's not like they opened in, the UK 2 weeks early or 2 weeks before it opened here. It's just a day or two. You'll be fine. Don't you worry about it. And you're going to enjoy the film when you see it. All right. Next one. Andreas writes, live in a not so big city in Mexico, under 1 million people. Lines outside the theater from 7 a.m. on pre-sale. Never saw anything like it before. My sister got mine. Now it is booked for the whole opening week. That's awesome. And yeah, you don't see that. Look, I still don't understand how there are movie theaters in the world where you got to line up. Oh, and that's pre-sale, like lined up for pre-sale, not even buying online. Whew. Yeah, it is crazy. Look, I still remember when The Phantom Menace was coming out. And literally 4 days. I remember, and I'm sure there were longer in other places, but I was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and there was a line that started forming 4 days before tickets went on sale. 4 days. People had tents on the sidewalks, and by the time it was like 2 days before it, there had to be 200 people, 300 people in that line. It was nuts. So you think lining up since 7 a.m. is crazy. 4 days. Now, fortunately, we live in an era with technology that we can avoid stuff like that, but it is always wild when we get to see those sorts of things, right? Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Andres. Chief Dog 1100 writes, which stones did Thanos use to make the snap happen? Did he really need all the stones? Well, that's what the movie said. The movie said in order to pull off something of that much immense power, he required all 6 Infinity Stones. If he didn't need all 6, he just would have snapped as soon as he had whichever ones he needed. So I think he needed to pull off something on a cosmic level like that. He needed all the power of all the stones to do it. So yeah, he needed all of them. He really did. That's what the movie said. So he really did need them all. Terrell Wise writes, favorite character in Endgame? Can't answer that. Can't answer that. Because even if I give an answer, that if I say, just for argument's sake, let's say I say my favorite character in Endgame is Thor, right? Then you're going to start speculating, oh, so then that means Thor has a major thing and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I appreciate the question, but I'm going to be sensitive to everybody here. I will say going into Endgame, pretending again like I haven't seen Endgame, my favorite character in the MCU is Captain America. Probably my second favorite is then Thor. But that's what I would say going into Endgame. Who my specific favorite character in Endgame was, cannot answer at the risk of it being a spoiler. All right, Doshi writes, China record confirmed 300 million opening weekend. No, China's record has nothing to do with the opening weekend record in North America. So no, that a Chinese record does not confirm a record here. Not at all. I mean, I think Endgame will break the $250 million record set by Infinity War. But something that happens in China has no bearing on whether or not the opening weekend here will be 300 million or not. So no, it does not. I mean, it might do it, but China setting a record does not confirm an opening weekend record in North America. The two have nothing to do with each other. So no confirmation there. Holland Love writes, harder secret, knowing spoilers of Infinity War or Endgame? I cannot explain why, because that might give away spoilers. I'll just say Infinity War was a harder secret to keep. But I'm not going to go into the details about why I'm saying that, because going into the details of why I'm saying that could potentially give away a spoiler. And again, our spoiler discussion is on Sunday at 12 p.m. Make sure you come and join us then. All right, Brandon Lopez writes, "Hey, John, huge fan of the show. Thank you so much, Brandon. Go Bruins." I'm so happy, but man, just want to say your Toronto Maple Leafs gave us a memorable series. Mad respect to your team who went down swinging. No, they didn't. They choked. The Leafs choked. Now, last year I said, this is a series the Bruins are going to win. The Bruins are going to win this series. This year, the Leafs should have won this series. They choked. They had the lead. They choked. And all I can say is congrats to the Boston Bruins. It's always sweet when you win a series, particularly when it's a series you're not supposed to win and you do. That makes it extra sweet. I always love that as an underdog. So congrats to the Bruins, and I hope you guys do well in the rest of the playoffs. And I'm now just going to spend another year being an angry, bitter Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Okay, I can't think of a good username writes, will Marvel release the other 14,604 cuts? Wouldn't that be amazing if they started every week for the next 40 years? Or 500 years, whatever, they're going to release a different version of Endgame that portrays a different outcome from all the ones that Doctor Strange saw in Infinity War. Rindrake06 writes, only yes or no. Did somebody say Avengers Assemble? I'm not answering that. Sorry. TJ Thomas writes, I see Detective Pikachu tonight and Endgame tomorrow. I'm so excited. That's awesome. I can't see Detective Pikachu till May 9th. Well, unless I get them. I generally skip out on the press screenings, although because my wife is really excited about it, if I get a press screening invite for Detective Pikachu, I'll probably go to that one because Anne really wants to see it. Bats220 writes, just saw the companion video with my last comment with the red and white suits. I do love them, by the way. I was hoping you'd remember the Ragnarok quote. Oh, I see. I remember that now. You're talking about... And I thought you were just saying you didn't like the red and white suits in the game, but you were talking pick one color. That's right. Sorry. Look, you catch me in the middle of doing a show when I've just answered 30 questions. I got 30 more questions to go. My mind's going all over the place. The vague references, sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. But anyway, that was a good one, Bats. Okay, Ryan Lohner writes, I adore Changing Lanes. Oh, I love that movie. Jackson showing how he sabotaged the tire chilling. It's such a good movie. That came up this morning because we were talking about Ben Affleck directing this new movie called Ghost Army. And it just got us talking about certain things. And I brought up Changing Lanes. I think is a tremendously underrated film that not nearly enough people have watched. It's Ben Affleck and Samuel L. Jackson. It's power. It shows what happens when we just let anger can kind of control us. It's amazing. I love Changing Lanes. If you haven't had a chance to see it, please do. And Ryan, I'm glad you enjoy that one, man. All right, Bats220 writes, also, I want one of those hoodies too. You can find them. There's so many people making them now. You can go on Amazon and find them. No, I just got lucky that I got my hands on one in time for the premiere. That's what I really wanted it for. Alex Deasy writes, do trailers for Endgame really give nothing away? It depends on who you ask. I mean, obviously, it shows you some things, right? Can you say it gave nothing away when we see that Tony Stark is back on Earth? Well, that gives something away. I mean, it all depends on your definition. Do the trailers give nothing away? Of course, they give some things away, but do they spoil... Does it give things away that spoils your enjoyment of the film? No, not in any way, shape, or form. But even then, that depends on who you ask, Alex. Blue Sky Gutierrez writes, Endgame, need to rewatch a couple more times. Phew. Yeah, I've seen it twice. I'm going to go see it again on Thursday, and then I'll probably watch it again sometime on the opening weekend. Overall, just a tremendous film. Again, I have ups and downs. There are pros and cons, some wildly cool stuff, some problematic stuff in the first two acts. But they kind of even each other out. But it's when you get to the third act, when you get to that third full hour of the movie, to me is when it really takes its wings. And all the stuff in the first 2 hours pays off. And then you walk out of the theater just shaking. I mean, that's all I can say. You walk out of the theater shaking after seeing that final hour. So, but you're right. I need to see it a few more times, I think. Cesar Rivera writes, mediocre, but John, why did you hate the movie? It is what it is. Mike Lynch writes, public service announcement, Beyond the Trailer has a BIV spoiler of an element Beyond the trailer has a Biv spoiler of an element at play in Endgame. Beware. I'm so glad I got it spoiled when she promised. I'm so sad I got it spoiled when she promised no spoilers. Well, here's the thing, Mike. I haven't seen the thing you're talking about, but again, it's tricky because different people have different definitions of what a spoiler is, right? You may say something because you feel safe because you don't think it's a spoiler at all, but somebody else might think that's a spoiler. And I haven't seen the video in question, but maybe, they said something that they felt safe wasn't a spoiler, but you do think it's a spoiler. I mean, that's what makes spoilers so tricky, is that we have no agreed upon definition of what is a spoiler and what isn't. And that does make it tricky, really does. And that sucks though. Nick Charlick writes, seeing Endgame tonight at 12 a.m. in the UK, so hyped. Enjoy the hype, man. And when you come out, you're going to be bouncing off the walls, I think. Coming out of that final hour is just crazy. Melvin Rosa writes, hey, John, just catching the show now. Was wondering if you had a me moment and found... Was wondering if you had a me moment and found Ed better the second time around. I'm sorry, Melvin. I don't know what it is you're asking. I apologize about that, Melvin. Sorry about that. Jeremy Sneed writes, Thor the Dark World played on repeat for some reason while at hospital during my daughter's birth. So as much as it's panned, it holds a special place in my heart. Any meh films that you love due to a memory? Oh, wow. That's a good question. There is a Kenny Rogers movie. Let me see if I can look it up here. There is a Kenny Rogers movie that I was like a child when it came out. It was called Six Pack. And I remember watching it with some friends. And yeah, I was really young. And it's not all that beloved. But I just remember watching that movie, and I was watching it with friends. And ever since then, whenever I think of Kenny Rogers, I think Six Pack, and that's kind of a movie that comes to me. I think if I had time to sit around and think about it, Jeremy, I might come up with one or two more of those. But yeah, that's the one that hits me off the top of my head anyway. That's a really cool story, though. That movie was playing during the birth of your daughter. That's going to be special to you now for the rest of your life. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, man. Patrick Conway writes, where are we? I think the month-long delay in Europe hurt Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm not so sure. Now, I could be wrong about this, and maybe I'm thinking about something else, but I believe we looked up some numbers, and it performed comparably to the way the first Ant-Man did when it opened in the UK, so I'm not so sure that the delay hurt it too much. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll never know for sure, but if I remember right, and I might be thinking about something else, but I thought I remembered that Ant-Man and the Wasp performed pretty much on par with the first Ant-Man, which means it couldn't have been negatively affected all that much. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I have to check that out, though. Tom Kierstead writes, was there an end credit scene? No, I can tell you that there was no end credit scene, and apparently it wasn't just us. I'm getting people from around the world telling me that in their screenings also there's no post-credit scene. So there you go. No need to stick around through the end credits if you don't want to. Vegetable Tube writes, did they say Avengers Assemble or Bring the Filthy? I can confirm that they did indeed not say Bring on the Filthy. I can confirm that. As far as Avengers Assemble, I ain't going to answer that. Shinigami I writes, over under 20%, Endgame crosses 2 billion in 2 weeks. Ooh, in 2 weeks? I think it'll cross 1 billion in one. In 2 weeks? It's a possibility. I don't like 20%. That seems kind of high, but it is a possibility. But I'll still take under 20%. But it's got a chance. It does have a chance. Blue Rock writes, dumb question. Is Endgame better experience than Force Awakens? Force Awakens made me cry 3 times, and not in always a good way. I'm not going to answer that. Look, they're different movies with different experiences. So, and here's the thing. I find that people are looking, I'm not saying you're doing this, Blue, but I usually find when people ask me that, it's a setup. They're trying to set me up for something. But all I'll say is that I had a remarkable time at Force Awakens. I had a remarkable time with that movie. I love The Force Awakens. I think it's the best Star Wars movie other than the original trilogy. But anyway, that's just me. So Endgame is a very different experience. It's a very different movie, I'll say that. So I'm not going to sit here right now and quantify which one I think is the better experience because, yeah, I just don't want to do that. All I'll say is that I've really enjoyed both experiences very much. Vaishno Zin writes, taken upon myself to hunt down the spoiler videos. Dun, dun. I think a lot of people in the world want to do that, man. Jeremiah writes, so Star Trek and Spock are not in Endgame. Thanks for the spoilers. Oh, that's right. Because earlier in the show today, Rob said, man, there's so much going on. I wouldn't have been surprised if Kirk and Spock beamed in and became a part of the movie. So now Jeremiah is saying, so Star Trek and Spock are not in Endgame? Thanks for the spoilers, Rob. That's funny. I almost forgot about that, but that's funny, Jeremiah. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Bombus467 writes, Robert Downey Jr.'s last 8 minutes comments. Do you guys agree? Okay, so there was a story out this week where Robert Downey Jr. said, like, the last 8 minutes of this movie are like the most satisfying of all, out of anything they've done in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can see why he said it. Like, it's really good. I'll respectfully disagree with him, though. I can probably think of a couple of, I mean, it's great, but I can think of a couple of final 8 minutes, not final 8 minutes, I can think of a couple of 8-minute stretches in certain movies that I think were more memorable and all that kind of stuff. But it is great, and it's a part of that final hour that is, in my opinion, the greatest hour ever in a comic book related movie any time in the genre. It's just, the last hour is so ridiculous. It's just amazing. I'm Upset writes, do the Hulk dogs appear at Endgame from that Ang Lee Hulk film with the Hulk poodle and the other Hulk dogs? Oh my God. You know what? At the risk of sharing a major spoiler, I will let you know and confirm for you right now, there are no Hulk dogs in Avengers Endgame. I'm sorry if some of you consider that a big spoiler. But no Hulk dogs, thankfully, in Avengers Endgame. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion video. We're now all caught up on the questions from earlier today. Thank you to everybody for sending in those questions, not only for giving us some fun stuff to talk about, but also because you support the channel when you do it, and I appreciate that very much. My apologies to everybody, but I'm sure you understand, who sent in questions asking some specifics about Endgame. I'm just not in a place that I am at liberty to answer that because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I hope you guys understand, and I'm sure that you do. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for now. Don't forget, me and Robert, and actually tomorrow, I'll let you know right now, me, Robert, and Greg Alba of The Real Rejects. Greg Alba is joining Robert and I tomorrow for the John Campea Show. Make sure you come on by and join us for that. Should be a lot of fun. My name's John Campea, guys, and until my next video, bye-bye.